Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Second Son Woodworks. My name is Caleb, and today I'm going to be showing you a really awesome DIY hack on how to make a roll-up tool pouch out of dyed canvas that will resemble a leather tool pouch, but at a much cheaper price. The first step in this project is to cut the canvas that you will be dyeing and using for the tool pouch and the pockets on the tool pouch. So I went ahead and cut the canvas and then prepped the different buckets that I will be dyeing the canvas in. It took me a bit to find this liquid dye that had the colors that I desired. The first place I stopped at, Hobby Lobby, only had powdered dyes that you had to mix, and they didn't have very many colors. So then I dropped over to Joann Fabrics, and luckily they had quite a big selection of liquid dyes that they had some pretty cool colors. The two colors I used was a leather brown, because I'm kind of trying to imitate the color of leather, and then the other color is a blue jean, which I figured would be kind of cool for the pockets. The process for dyeing this canvas was actually pretty simple, and if you do it right, you can do it without making too big of a mess. What you need though is a bucket to actually soak the fabric in, and then you need access to some hot water, and the hot water is mixed with the dye, and then you let the fabric soak, and then after you drain it and wash it with cold water. When I went and washed the fabric with cold water after it had set for the recommended time on the back of the label, I was a little bit worried that it was going to dye the bathtub itself, because when I sent all that dye down the drain, it actually didn't drain right away, and so it kind of filled the bathtub up. But it actually washed away pretty easy after that. I used a little bit of cleaner once I was all finished up, and it washed away. So my parents were not going to kill me, so that's good. Then after that, you set the canvas out in a place where it can dry overnight, or at least that's what I did. And then I came back the next morning, cleaned everything up, and got ready to start ironing the pieces of canvas out so that they would be easier to work with, and so that all the seams would be clean. I think ironing is one of those things that people just generally don't like to do, but I find it kind of soothing, especially once that iron gets nice and hot. After I finished ironing out the first large piece of fabric that was dyed brown, took it outside and shook it off because it had quite a bit of lint that had kind of accumulated on the outside. The next day I came back and did the same process for the pieces that were dyed denim blue that will be used for the pockets of the tool pouch. Oh, and I had to do a bit more of the brown fabric. Dyed fabric. After the ironing was complete for those various pieces of dyed canvas that will be used for this tool pouch, the sun was rising in Montana. Took a step outside, looked at the beautiful sunrise, went and made some more coffee, and moved on to the next part. Because I was making this tool pouch as a gift for my brother for Christmas, and because I was visiting Montana and didn't have any spare tools, what I did is I picked up some various silverware pieces and tools that can be used in the kitchen to make this actual tool pouch for. And so my thought is that I could give this as a gift to my brother that he could use for camping. So this was a easy way to be able to make a tool pouch that could be used with these culinary tools. But you could use this exact same method for any type of tool that you might have that you need to have a tool pouch for. So in this process, essentially, or in this part of the process, essentially what I'm doing is laying out the tools and figuring out the placement on the actual tool pouch, doing some marking, and then cutting out the general area that I'll have for the main section of the tool pouch. And then after that, I move on to folding over the outside edges and ironing them down before putting one thread line through these folded areas. I also decided to use some barge all-purpose glue to reinforce the areas where I will be doing the seam. This is a good idea if you want the tool pouch to last just a bit longer. This is my first time using this barge glue, and I really like it. It comes with a little stick on the inside, or a little brush that's a part of the screw-on lid, and you can just dab it on underneath the seam and then iron it down, and then I'll come back with the sewing machine and run a nice thread line down those seams so that they're super reinforced and won't tear apart over time. After that, it was time to head over to the Brother sewing machine that I borrowed from my sister-in-law and get to sewing. I'm new to sewing. This is actually the third sewing or tool pouch that I have sewed. I did all of these when I was back in Montana visiting. I first started trying to use my mom's Singer sewing machine that was built a long time ago, but unfortunately the machine started to fall apart. You can check out the video where I talk a little bit more about that. There's a link above. But luckily I was able to borrow this Brother machine from my brother, actually from my brother's wife, and it works awesome. It's a sleek machine that pretty easy to load up. The bobbin, it's got the tool for that, as well as easy to put different needles on, and the foot pedal works really well. There's a nice light. It's a good machine. I'd like to get one like this eventually, but luckily I was able to borrow one. I mentioned this in the other video too. If you're going to be doing some sewing, get yourself a good pair of scissors. You're going to use them a lot. Once the seams on the side of the main tool pouch had been sewed, went back over to my work surface, and once again I laid out the pieces of silverware and various kitchen tools that I'll be using for this tool pouch to figure out the placement of the pockets using the canvas that I dyed the denim color. And like I said earlier on in the video, if you're going to be doing this project and you're going to be putting actual tools such as like chisels or screwdrivers or something like that, this would be the part where you would lay out those tools and figure out the placement on the actual tool pouch. And then after you figure out the placement of your tools that you'll be using in the tool pouch, you cut out the fabric that will be for the pockets. And then I took those pieces of fabric and I went through the same process where I folded out the outside edges, used some barge glue to reinforce the seams, and then I'll be going back over to the sewing machine and sewing the exterior folded over edges of these pieces of fabric that will be used for the pockets. One of the coolest things about using a sewing machine like this one is that it usually has a tool on the top side that you can load up the bobbin, and the bobbin is like the spool of thread that is on the underside of the needle, and you can fill this bobbin with whatever color thread or size thread that you'd like, and then you have the thread that will be coming from the top, and you can either match the thread color or you can change it up, and it can be two different types of thread, and you can match it with the colors of the canvas. It's really fun. Once that was complete, I went back over to my work surface, laid out the tool pouch, or the main tool pouch, with the folds looking inward, and then I put down all of those different pockets that I sewed the edges on, and I laid them out on the tool pouch where they would be attached to the tool pouch. And I kind of tested it out with the different kitchen utensils and figured out exactly where I was going to sew the pockets to the tool pouch. Once I had everything laid out on the inside of the tool pouch, I went back around with some needles to attach the pockets to the tool pouch so that when I go over to the sewing machine, they remain in place, and I'll just remove the needles as I go down the line. This is a nice and easy way to attach two different portions, two different pieces of canvas like these pockets to the tool pouch. So if you've ever wondered why your grandma had all of those needles with little round colored balls on the top, you now know. After that, it was time to go over to the sewing machine and run some thread lines to attach the pockets to the tool pouch. Now, I could have added a nice bead of barge glue, but I didn't because I was a little bit worried that the barge glue would leak through and be kind of an eyesore on the outside of the tool pouch. But you could do this if you really wanted to enforce the seams. I think I ended up doing 2 lines per each pocket so that they were really attached well, and I also made sure to do a back stitch at the top sides of each of those pockets. I made sure to start at the top of the pocket on one side, go down to the bottom of the pocket, and then you can loop around and do the other side of the pocket, and then you'll have the top of the pocket open where you can slide in your tools, and in my case the kitchen utensils, forks, spoons, stuff to cook with. Now, I'm really hoping that this canvas tool pouch will inspire some of you to do something similar and make it even better. So if you have cool ideas, put them in the comment section below. Send me photos. Get creative. Build something cool. Ha! Once I ensured that the various kitchen utensils fit well into those pockets, it was time to move on to the last step in this tool pouch, which was to make some sort of strap that could wrap around the outside of the tool pouch once it rolls up to kind of keep everything held together. So to do this, I took a portion of the canvas that I dyed with the blue denim and I cut it out and then folded it 2 ways with some barge glue in the center to make a nice long strap that then I could sew onto the outside portion of the tool pouch so that it was attached, but then there'd be a long portion that could wrap around when you roll it up. And you'll see more of what I mean here in a second, but after I put some barge glue into this piece of canvas, ironed it down, I went over to the sewing machine and ran a couple lines of thread down the strap. Then went back over to the tool pouch to figure out the place that I would be attaching the strap to the tool pouch. This took a bit of testing. I used some needles, once again those needles with the colored ball on the top, to attach it in different spots to see how it felt when I would roll it up. And I think I ended up going with this option right here where it was attached just pretty simple right there on the end of the tool pouch. And then you can unroll it and it just wraps around. It works super well. And then it was time to sew the actual strap to the pouch, and in this case I did use some glue because I wanted it to be attached to the tool pouch really well. Then the very last step in this project was to attach this decorative patch of some mountains and a sun and trees. Kind of adds a nice element to the interior section of the tool pouch that, like I said, will be a gift to my brother. So I used some barge glue and then ironed the patch on. Well, folks, I appreciate you sticking around to the very end of another project by Second Son Woodworks. My name is Caleb. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and learned just a bit about sewing like I did when I made this tool pouch. If you have any questions or comments or ideas or thoughts, put them down in the comment section below. Make sure to check out all of my other videos that I have listed in my library. If you like what you saw today, hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon next to it so that you stay notified when I release new project videos. And then, like I always say, build something cool. Thank you, everybody.